It's time for the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Ether,
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check out all of our other wonderful links in the description on the Linktree. This week's episode, the Anunnaki.
Anunnaki.
very nice.
Nice touch.
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic. There's a lot of information surrounding it. There's a lot of misinformation too, and some of that stems from the most popular story that most people would probably be familiar with, which is the interpretations of the cuneiform tablets by Zachariah Sitchin. And I think the guy was a very smart individual. He was very interested in the subject, but some of the translations that he made are not necessarily straightforward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I read about. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and in the books that he had written and stuff, he had laid out a couple different stories and stuff, and there were very interesting reads. It's kind of complicated because like you look, it depends on like what source of information you're trying to look at as far as like what you think is going to be, the actual story going on here, whether the Anunnaki was, actual gods that came down. So, all right. So just to explain the story that most people would be familiar with, the story goes a little bit like this. There's a planet called Nibiru, which is a planet that has a very elongated rotation around the sun. And for one rotation around the sun, as far as our years go, it'd be 3,600 years, according to the accepted story by Zachariah Sitchin. And so the story goes that these Anunnakis that lived on Nibiru, they had an atmosphere and that was basically depleting, like their atmosphere and their what do you call it? The freaking oh damn it! I just brain farted.
Gold?
Oh yeah.
Ozone?
Well, the climate, yeah, the ozone, the climate in the atmosphere were changing rapidly. And they were an advanced species, so what they decided to do was they needed gold, basically, to reheal their atmosphere and the climate, right? To make the planet more habitable. And so
to stabilize it.
Stabilize it, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And so they didn't have a whole lot of gold on their planet, so when they came by Earth had an abundance of gold. So what they would do was they would collect this gold from Earth and they would break it down and they would infuse it into their atmosphere to heal it basically and protect them from like radiation from the solar system and stuff like that, So that's why they came here to begin with. And when they first came here, they had a race of people called Igigis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that exactly correct. But they first used this race of people to collect gold, to mine gold from Earth. And after a certain while, the Igigis were basically fed up with it. Like they were like, hey, we're not miners, we're not slaves. So they revolted and they had a war. And the Anunnaki won the war. But afterwards, they're like, all right, so we can't use this race of Igigis to mine gold anymore. So that's why they basically developed humans. They had a couple incarnations of workers that they tried to develop that didn't work out so well. And then they eventually spliced their own DNA with, hominids that were already present here on Earth. And they made the human race.
Right,
basically,
they made
in the first
hybrids, basically.
Yeah.
Hybrids, yeah. And the first man that was made was, from what I understand, was called Adamu.
Well, I think this would be a good place to pause real quick. I don't think we mentioned yet what the Anunnaki what they come from. And that comes from They're the gods of the ancient Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. Just a little bit of background, just to where all this, what are we talking about? Where is it coming from? And where did we get it? So let's just go over that just a little bit before we get too deep into the actual story. So Sumer is, where the Sumerians lived, is the oldest known civilization of Mesopotamia and the first literate civilization of ancient Mesopotamia. And it began during the Copper Age, about 5000 BC, give or take. But some tales tell the story as far back as 6500 BC. They consider it to be the cradle of civilization. In other words, this is where civilization started and maybe spread out from here. They believe that might be the case. Of course, there is a lot of missing data, so we don't know that for sure. The oldest texts we have are from about 3,500 BC or so. So about 5,000 years ago, give or take. That's a long time ago. But we have texts from that long ago. When you think, that far back, people were just, caveman unga-bungaing each other around or whatever. But no, we actually have writing from back then. So it's pretty cool. They lived in the valleys of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. That's something I remember from middle school history there.
Yeah.
And
part of the Fertile Crescent.
Yeah. And what we have are the texts that are imprinted on clay tablets in what the writing is called cuneiform. I think Agent ETA already mentioned that.
Yeah.
The Anunnaki themselves are the descendants of the sky gods An or Anu and Ki. Those are the two gods that gave birth to the Anunnaki.
I think it's like sky and sun.
Yeah, sky or earth, or I forget which. And interestingly enough, even though An and Ki are the ones who birthed all the gods, they're apparently not really very important figures in the mythology or the religion. They're very minor figures. I mean, they're the beginning of everything, but they're not really all that important.
As far as the family tree of gods go, they are very important, but they weren't heavily worshipped in the area from what it seems.
Right.
And one little side note, actually, the word Anunnaki is not a Sumerian word. It's actually from the Akkadians.
Okay. I was not aware of that.
It was Anunna was a Sumerian word, but it was like Anunnaki is from what I understand, maybe I'm wrong, I'm no expert in this, but from what I read, Anunnaki is Akkadian. It's not Sumerian.
Okay.
Researching all this made me wish I was an expert. I'm like, I want to learn more about Sumerian.
It's really interesting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see this stuff all over the place. Like I was reading about this case, last week, and we were playing Diablo 4, and I saw some writing on the ground, and it looked like the cuneiform tablets, like the writing. It looked exactly alike. I'm like, dude, that's totally, I doubt it actually said anything, but who knows? Maybe it did. But so like they're getting some of the stuff from that game directly from mythology, and there's some names here that I recognize from various places. Like one of the gods is Tiamat, which is a dragon god in the Dungeons and Dragons game. At least the AD&D first edition was, I think Tiamat was a god in that edition at least. So there's a lot of this.
Ancient Sumerians are rolling over in their graves.
I know, right? There's a lot of this stuff that's actually sort of filtered down throughout the years, and it's still kind of with us to this day. Those are just a couple of very minor examples. But yeah, so Anu or An, I guess, is the divine personification of the sky, the king of the gods, and the ancestor of ancient Mesopotamian gods. And then the name apparently literally means sky in Sumerian. So that's sort of interesting, and I'm sure we'll touch on that again. But there is this association with not just Anu, but the Anunnaki in general, with coming from the sky, which is often cited. And then from what I found, Ki is the earth goddess and the chief consort of An. And some legends I found that An and Ki are actually siblings, and they're the offspring of Anshar and Kishar. But I mean
well, you see a lot of that in the family tree there of gods when it comes to Sumerian gods. Like there's a ew. Like so there's some icky stuff going on there.
We don't want to get too much into the mythology because that's like a whole other can of worms. Like you could do a whole podcast just on this stuff, just on easily
dedicate an entire series to it. Yeah, for sure,
without a doubt. But Ki and Anu's offspring were the Anunnaki, like I said. The most important is probably Enlil, who is the god of wind, air, earth, and storms. And he was the chief deity worshipped by the Sumerians and was believed to have built the temple in Ikur. Pardon my pronunciations, but then again, nobody speaks this language anymore, so who knows? I could be saying it right.
How it was originally pronounced.
Yeah. So he separated Enlil separated the earth from sky and made the world habitable for people. Not An and Ki. They just birthed the gods, but actually Enlil's the one who made the earth for people. Eric von Daniken wrote Chariot of the Gods in 1968, and he's a pretty important figure as far as forming current beliefs. I mean, I think it's safe to say without Eric von Daniken, you wouldn't have the Ancient Aliens show, for example, you know?
Probably, yeah.
And he's been very influential on this topic in general, starting with his book Chariot of the Gods, but also other books that he wrote. He's a very influential figure when it comes to this stuff. I don't want to go too much into his stuff right now. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And there's all sorts of ideas surrounding this, but that's just a really, really quick overview of what we're talking about here before we dive in a little deeper. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but we didn't introduce that yet, so I wanted to introduce it.
Yeah, for sure. So, where were we?
You were talking about there's the original race that they didn't like, the Anunnaki didn't like, and then they got rid of them and came up with the hybrids.
Yeah, so the Anunnaki, according to this story, were credited with basically creating the human race. And they also gave the human race certain things like architecture and mathematics. And not just that, but also like agriculture and, stuff like that. And let me just say, the Sumerians are an ancient race, an ancient culture. I don't believe they are the first ones that were, capable of doing all this kind of stuff, like irrigation, like I said, in agriculture. They were definitely more advanced than some of the more, some of the ancient races and stuff that was cultures that are around there. But like, here's the thing, like you have certain things like, for example, Göbekli Tepe, which greatly predates, this culture. And the temples in, the Anatolia region of Turkey there where Göbekli Tepe is found, in order for them to have created these temples, they had to have had free time, which means they had to have had an abundance of food. They must have been, obviously, because the quality of stone masonry and the architecture you can find there, they must have had a decently advanced culture. And I'm of the opinion that I think the human race, because it's obvious we have had the same cranial capacity for hundreds of thousands of years, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that we have gone through different cycles of advancement, maybe in different ways, different types of advancement, but we have been reset multiple times before because of great catastrophes. We had to, hit the restart button. So, and it's no wonder to me that any evidence of great ancestry, any kind of advanced cultures, we wouldn't necessarily find it because time erases all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's if something is, if you have some kind of evidence that is, say, just for example, say it's 150,000 years old, it's not necessarily going to stand the test of time. It's going to be erased. And it's no wonder that we haven't found this evidence, or maybe we have. Because actually, I think that some of the megalithic structures that we do have around the world that we know of, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're misdated. Who knows how old some of these structures actually really are. We don't know. We're not psychic. There might be even just the pyramids or, stuff like that. Any of these structures on the Giza Plateau, we can't carbon date stone, right? So we don't really know how old these structures are. There might be some evidence, right? But also at the same time, to use that example, the structures that we have on the Giza Plateau, even the dynastic Egyptians said themselves, a lot of these structures or the cultures that they had inherited came from Zep Tepi, the time before, right? So they themselves even said that, they didn't create all this stuff. They inherited it, So, I mean, who are we to say that, like, like we know what the hell is going on here? I'm just saying, it's just a little side note. Like,
Yeah.
we really don't know what the human history, the truth of human history is.
And just look at the timeline that we know about. Let's say, hypothetically, we'll go back further than what's currently accepted. Let's go all the way back to Göbekli Tepe and say that was the start of civilization, just hypothetically. And that was what, like 10, 12,000 years ago or something? I forget the exact number. And then,
yeah, I believe because it was right at the end of the Younger Dryas era, the last ice age.
Yeah.
I believe that was about somewhere around like 10,400 or 10,600 years ago when it ended.
Yeah. So if you look at where our species has come back then, from building stone monuments all the way to now, where not just have we, conquered the sea and the skies and gone to other planets. We've gone to other planets. That is so crazy.
Well, we've sent things to other planets.
Yeah, dude, we have pictures from the surface of Mars.
Yeah, but you haven't gone to another planet.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to at this point. But I mean, the point is that...
Is it the surface of Mars, though, or is it the Mojave Desert?
Yeah, right. But the point is we've done so much crazy stuff. Just look at all the technology. And we're about to begin the next stage of technology, which is this AI stuff and, higher powered computers like quantum computing and all that stuff.
That scares the shit out of me.
Well, I think it's exciting because the next step is that if you look at the advancement of technology in the 20th century, I think a big part of it is developing machines that could do work for us. So you can have a machine calculate a million different variables in the amount of time it would take a whole team of really smart people like a year to do that same amount of work, right? So now that whole team of really smart people can go off and do other really smart things, so stuff happens faster, right? We're about to enter a new era of scientific acceleration, once they start developing all this stuff.
I think we've already entered the very beginning of that era.
Yeah.
But the thing that like really scares me is like, what if the AI, and there's a lot of people that have already had this conversation that know much more about it than I do, but it does scare me. It's like, what if the AI gets out of control? What if it thinks it's self-aware? What if it actually does become self-aware?
Well, usually though, AI is very task specific.
Right.
It's not just out there on the World Wide Web or something.
Like I said, I don't necessarily understand this stuff. I have a very, very basic understanding of it, right? But like, it still scares me. Like what if like this shit does get out of control? By the time it happens, like we're not going to be able to deal with it. Like we're not going to be able to conquer this shit because it's already going to be so far ahead of us.
They actually
by nature,
they've been using AI to translate these Sumerian tablets because a lot of them are incomplete and it's hard to fill in the gaps. And they don't know how to translate certain words. And then just the time that it takes, I think, to do all these translations. So
the times and the patterns and stuff. It can, and AI will be able to recognize patterns much faster than we will. We could spend our time and do it. We could do it, but the AI will do it much, much faster.
So what they want is for you to be able to plug in the glyphs into a computer and for it to spit out an English translation, not just a transliteration, which is typically into Latin, which then needs to be translated into English, but just direct to English. And they've had really good results with like short and medium length sentences. And it's like a model learning based neural network. So it actually learns from itself and it's open source. You can go online, you can get the open source. So you can, get the code and go ahead and start using it, which I think is really amazing. Yeah,
that is so cool. And this is one thing I was going to mention is I think where we're headed is that this is exactly what Agent Ether said was the key idea here is a self-correcting AI. So we can give it a problem. Okay, problem. Figure out a propulsion system to get us to Jupiter within 2 months. Give it a ridiculous problem like that no person has been able to solve. And it will come up with solutions and test the solutions, and it will self-correct. I think we are on the cusp of AI developing technology that no person can understand. We don't know the science behind it. We just know that it works. Nobody knows how it works. I think that's where we're headed. Just think about your car. I think most people don't actually know how their car works. They don't care as long as it gets them from point A to point B, you know?
Yeah. I would agree with that. I understand the majority of it.
Yeah,
but that's only because I used to be a mechanic.
Fix your cars now because it has so much computer technology.
Yeah.
Right? They have to go in and use a special coding system, and then the coding system pops up and it says, well, this specific, transformer in your car needs to be replaced. You need to do this, you need to do that.
Yeah.
But it's all electronic now.
Yeah.
Well, it's been designed that way too.
On purpose,
to go all the way back to even like the 60s and the 70s, like when electronic windows started to come about, right? I used to have a 1962 Chevy pickup, right? And the gear ratio, it was manual window, right? And so you would only have to crank that lever, 3 times, 3.5 times at most to get it all the way up or get it all the way down, right? And so once electric windows started being implemented, they started to change the gear ratio with manual windows because at that time, electric windows weren't it was an extra option. So you have to pay more for it, right? So the manufacturers would make more money off of it, right? If you chose that option. So they changed the gear ratio for manual windows in order to make you want the electric window motor, right?
It takes like 20 turns to get the window up or down instead of 3.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, and they also started doing things like taking away, for example, like a transmission, right? They took away like the drain plug for the transmission on the transmission pan because like their excuse was like, oh, people are draining the fluid and they're not changing the filter. Well, and I think most people were changing the filter. It's just, they recognize that they started doing these things that started forcing people to bring their car to the dealership to have any kind of maintenance done. Because the maintenance is also, it makes them a lot of money, right?
Yeah, that's where they make a lot of their money. That's why they killed the electric car in the late 90s, why GM did, but that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, it's a whole different story. Yeah. I mean, it's related, but it's also like, there's cars out there nowadays that you can't even check the oil on your transmission or even on your engine. Some of these brand new cars. I mean, they're going hard on this stuff. Like, they don't want you to have any ability to service your own vehicle, even though you bought that vehicle. You might have it paid, and to me, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
like you're taking away the rights of vehicle owners, and forcing them into certain situations where you just have no option. Like, you have to take it to the dealer to have any kind of maintenance done. And to me, that's that really pisses me off, man.
Well, it'd be fine if the maintenance costs were reasonable, but usually if you take your car into the dealership, the maintenance costs are unreasonable. Like, whatever you think would be a fair price, multiply that by 10, and that's probably what you're going to end up paying,
Yeah.
Like, Agent Ether took her Toyota, and it's just a basic Toyota, Corolla?
Yeah.
Camry? Something like that. She took it in for some basic maintenance, and they charged her like $2,000. They didn't even do anything.
It was like $1,000.
Crazy.
It was crazy. I'm like, what did they even do? Like, they didn't do anything. They just checked some fluid levels and stuff. I don't even know what they did. It should be illegal. What they charge should be illegal.
Should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, like, it really pisses me off because I understand like there's a lot more people nowadays that don't grow up working on vehicles, but like I used to be a mechanic. So like I understand how to do a fucking brake job or a oil change, transmission service, differential, whatever it is. Like that's all the simple stuff, and mm-hmm. I could do much more than that. But it's like if I were to buy like a brand new like Lexus, for example, right, I wouldn't even be able to do a freaking transmission service on it because there's no dipstick.
Yeah.
How do I could probably look it up on YouTube and get my YouTube degree on how to do it maybe, but you might need some, and a lot of these manufacturers are also putting like fasteners that they have like their own, like it's no longer like a standard or metric size, fastener, you have to have a specialty tool to do everything,
You can get the tools. It just costs extra money and it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah. That's quite a tangent there.
A little bit.
All right, where were we? I think we were talking about...
I was talking about AI.
Oh, that's right. Agent Ether was talking about AI. And that brings up something I was thinking about, which is the problem of translating these scrolls, right? we don't have the cultural context for what these things mean. So it's very possible that we're misinterpreting some things. Just an example that came to mind was, if you've ever read the book The Stand by Stephen King, there's a character in there that his catchphrase is, can you dig this happy crappy? Now, let's say 10,000 years from now, some culture digs up a page of this book, just one page, and they interpret that, they translate, can you dig this happy crappy? They don't have the context for what that means. They don't have the book. They don't know if this is a real event, a fake event. All they know is that somebody is trying to dig up cheerful shit, you know? They don't know what it means. So it's the same thing for interpreting it for us, is we only have our best guess, and that's why you can get many different interpretations of the same thing.
Yeah, and the thing is with these cuneiform tablets as well is they have no punctuations. And some of the cuneiforms, you know, they represent like specific things, but some represents words, some represents like letters, and like Agent Anderson says, sometimes has more than one meaning and it needs to be read in context. So when you're doing this AI thing, that actually makes it really difficult because the AI has difficulty putting things in context. So it may provide like a literal translation of something that really needs some, like a more fluid translation. And this whole thing kind of reminds me of the translation of the Bible, because you have the original, let's say, Dead Sea Scrolls, or you have original material in Hebrew, and it gets translated to Latin or English or another language. And then you have the problem of semantics, where you have different religions looking at the same word, and they can't agree on what that one word means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just one word. But then like the whole thing.
One word can change.
It can.
Everything.
It can change everything. I agree.
Even one word that's said, like one sentence that's said, you just put a comma in one place versus another, that can change the entire meaning of the sentence with the same words in just one comma. So, I mean, it's a very, very tricky exercise to translate these things. But what did you find about? Well, you did a whole bunch of research, Agent Ether, and you said
I just read a couple papers.
You said I'll tell you later. I'm not going to tell you now. It's a secret. So I'm very curious to know what you found.
I feel like I probably should have been reading more about the Anunnaki. Is that how you say it?
Well, it's all under the same umbrella.
But I got so caught up in this whole thing with the tablets and how old they are and the material that's found in them. Actually, a lot of the material was kind of boring. It was like, and so we went to this town and we bought 3 pigs and there were 3 barrels of hay, and this was the month. Not really stories, except of course, what was it? The epic tale of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Was like the only real adventure that I could find. Everything else was not too exciting that I was reading.
Well, there are some really interesting things I found. For example, the creation story, Enuma Elish.
The flood. You have the floods.
And then there's
the deluge.
Then there's the flood story, and then there's just specific descriptions of some of the gods. There's the descriptions of Nibiru that are pretty weird.
This is all true, but the majority of the material is, let's say, royal decrees.
Yeah.
Accounting, that sort of thing. And there is that material, like you're saying. It's just the majority of what is out there is not that material. It's just, they even have some mathematical tablets. I was looking at some basic math, something about the Pythagorean theorem. I couldn't. Triplets of the Pythagorean theorem. I didn't have time to research everything, but I was like, what is this?
How did they have that kind of math?
That. I don't know. Aliens?
Well, I mean, they already knew it back in those times, and also like Göbekli Tepe, even predating them, they already knew about like stuff like, for example, like the precession of equinox, or the axial precession, like the slow wobble in the Earth's rotation. That's somewhere around a 26,000 year cycle, from what I understand. And to know that's some serious knowledge right there. You must have been paying attention for a long damn time in order to understand that.
Major news outlet, not something shady, says that, let's see, UNSW, which I think is somewhere in Sydney, scientists discovered a 37-year-old Babylonian clay tablet revealing the world's oldest and most accurate trigonometric table.
Dang.
It's only 37 years old there, is it?
3,700 years old.
Okay. Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, huh? I'm older than that.
Yeah, so there's definitely a trove, like a treasure trove out there of tablets that have different things on them, not just ancient stories, but math.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowledge of the solar system and stuff, how many planets we have in our solar system, the distances between them, the way that they revolve around the sun. There are ancient cultures that knew about this, and they were very accurate about like what they depicted, what they knew, So I find that to be very, very interesting. Like how did they know this, right? According to our current understanding of just for example, the Egyptians, right? They were supposed to be a Bronze Age culture. I don't believe that for 1 second. If they were the ones that built the pyramids and all the different structures on the Giza Plateau, they weren't a Bronze Age culture. They were much more advanced than that. I think there's a lot of cultures out there. We don't give them enough credit. They were much more advanced than we think they were, if they were to accomplish, what we think they did.
Well, we did a whole episode on technology that seemed too advanced.
Yeah.
For, the time. I remember doing that.
Yeah.
Like we talked about the ancient battery and looked at some different models of clocks and that sort of thing. It was really interesting.
The Baghdad battery. That's a good one.
Baghdad battery.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. And I find it funny, all right, so they were creating electrical charge there, right? But archaeologists will say, oh, they were using it for, obscure healing treatments and stuff. And what? Nah, dude, nah. If they knew about electricity, they were using it for their benefit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't using it for fucking that kind of shit.
They got pictures of light bulbs and stuff. What's that all about? That's kind of weird.
Right. Yeah, it's I don't think we're giving ancient cultures enough credit.
But they were just Stone Age jerks. They didn't actually know what any of this stuff was,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Copper Age or whatever.
In your guys' browsing and studying and note taking, were you able to find these actual tablets, the Enki tablets, where this guy got Mr. Zachariah Sitchin got his information from? Because he was supposed to have translated actual tablets, but then I found his translations, but I'm not sure where he was getting his information from.
Here's the thing about Zachariah Sitchin is the guy wasn't a professional, he wasn't a professional at this. He was born in where was it? Let me look. I think he was born in
born under a bad sign, perhaps.
Born under a bad sign. No, he was born in Azerbaijan. Is that how you pronounce it? I think. And he was raised in Palestine, but it was before. It's basically like Jerusalem,
I think he was Jewish, so he was.
Yeah, he was Jewish. Yeah, but he was born in basically what we know nowadays as a state of Israel, But it was before Israel was a state. It's before World War II. So Israel was made into a state. Was it 1948 or something like that? I think.
Yeah,
something
it was
like that,
48,
right?
And he was born in 1920. Wow, he was born a long time ago.
Dang.
Yeah. So the guy had he wasn't a professional when it comes to this. He was definitely very, very interested in it, but he had a degree in economics and from the University of London, I want to say something like that. But he ended up moving to New York in like the early 50s or something like that. And he became an executive in a shipping company. So so the story goes, from what I understand, he taught himself cuneiform. So
yeah.
If you do that, obviously you're very interested in it, right? But that doesn't make you necessarily an expert. You should learn from other people who have already, done that kind of stuff, like Like just for example, like his interpretation of Anunnaki was the what was it? Those who came from above or something like that, right? From heaven to earth. Those that came from heaven to earth. But most academics would accept the actual interpretation of Anunnaki, meaning from royal seed. So those are two very different things, two very different interpretations there, you know?
Yeah. But
so just that in itself is a big difference.
It doesn't necessarily mean he was he was wrong, because I don't think we know 100%. But on the other hand, he is self-taught, you know, so he may not have access to the best information as far as how to interpret this stuff. Which, Agent Ether, didn't you look at how they originally were able to interpret this stuff or translate this stuff?
No.
No? Oh. So I thought you did.
I'm just like, no. Like the very first translation. Well, that would be especially interesting because I think there's no relationship between Sumerian and like other languages. Like it's an origin language.
Yeah, they were confused about it for a while, but then at one point they found a location with like, I forget the number, but thousands and thousands of tablets. I didn't take notes on that because I thought you took notes on it, but it's fine. It doesn't matter that much. It's just
very limited amount of time between work and work.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there was one discovery in 1849 in Iraq where they found like 14 clay tablets amongst others as well, but the 14 clay tablets that they found were in direct relation to just describing the Anunnaki gods. And that's where a lot of this information came from, as far as what we know, you know.
Did you guys know? Well, this is, according to Ancient Aliens, the Second Iraq War.
Oh, God.
This is true. I saw it on TV. The Second Iraq War, the whole purpose was for them to get in and loot Iraq's museum so that they could capture and destroy Sumerian artifacts because people can't handle the truth.
Well, I am definitely aware that during that period of time, I did see the stories and I saw like video footage of it as well, of like Sumerian statues and like clay tablets that were like destroyed. And I don't know exactly what the reason is for this, but it might have to do with religion, you know. If there's any kind of information that stands in the face of your religion that may be, you know, counterintuitive, I guess you could say, or may, you know, say something opposite than what you believe. It seems like at least some of these instances, this is the reason why some of this archaeological stuff was destroyed, you know?
Yeah. And it was just war, man. Everything was getting smashed to bits back then. It's just really kind of sad. But there's...
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff that happened back then that we don't necessarily understand.
I don't think it was any grand conspiracy, though. I think they were just looters getting the stuff to sell to collectors. I think it's as simple as that, because there's probably people out there who'd pay a lot of money for some cuneiform tablets, you know?
Shit, if I had the money for it, I would.
Well, actually, a lot of them have been raided. Like there's large collections around the world, but they're not sure where they originally came from because they were torn up and raided.
Yeah. That'd be cool to get like a replica one.
There's a lot of stuff out there that are in very wealthy individuals' collections that you don't have like the chain of custody there. You know what I mean? Like you can't really prove where they came from because they were purchased on the black market. They may be very like important artifacts and it might be as legitimate as you can get, but you don't have that chain of custody. You know, you don't know where it really came from. You can't prove it. So, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I think the person that owns it probably knows, but in order to prove it, like it, you know, they would never, you know, prove it because they just want it for their own benefit, right?
Yeah. Or do they own a replica? Because, you know, if somebody's willing to pay millions of dollars for who knows what, there are probably people who are very talented and motivated to provide that thing, whether or not it's the real thing, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure how you would tell the difference between a real one and a really good fake. I don't know. But that's another possibility, perhaps.
You'd have to have experts, you know, that can, you know, genuinely prove to you that this is actually what you're buying, you know?
Yeah. So did we talk about Stitchin believed that the Anunnaki would return someday?
Well, they're supposed to live forever, basically.
Yeah.
So they could still be
Sitchin.
alive today, like the same who were involved originally with the deluge and the whole, history could still be alive today, and those same ones could come back.
Yeah.
Well, as far as like on the kings list, the Sumerian kings list, there were kings. Like I think the one that reigned the longest was something like 24,000 years or something like that, or maybe it was 34,000 years, something like that.
It was something like that.
You
Yeah.
know, just an unreasonable amount of time. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. Who knows how accurate that is? Maybe we're misunderstanding their way of tracking time, because they certainly weren't using the Gregorian calendar because it hadn't been invented yet. So maybe 1 year to them was something different than it is to us. Who knows? Or maybe these people really did live 34,000 years or however long it was.
Like Methuselah.
Yeah. Who,
Yeah.
they said on Ancient Aliens that Methuselah lived, what, like 900 years? Is that true?
It's a very exact number that I don't remember. Maybe it's like 999 or something.
But it's hundreds of years though, right?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
I will just say I am not a fan of Ancient Aliens or certain programs like that. I know I've alluded to it before, but it's one of those things where like it promotes the idea, like people who are interested in quote unquote conspiracy theories, like they must be wearing tinfoil hats. Well, but here's the thing: conspiracies are real, theories are real. Like what the hell are we talking about here? Yeah, some stuff like that in that realm is ridiculous. But the thing is, like a lot of these things that we talk about, like have a real like base in reality.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like for example, like a character like Alex Jones. Like, don't get me wrong, I think that he has brought up some some interesting information. Like the Bohemian Grove and stuff, which obviously is a thing, right? I'm not saying that I know what is actually the reality of the situation, but it's like it promotes this ideal that like anybody who is looking into these kind of things must be crazy, which is not the case. Like, what the hell we're talking about? There's some crazy shit going on here, and let's talk about it, right? If there's any information, like, well, why not talk about it, right?
Yeah,
why not be interested in it?
And it gives, I think, it does give the topic, it tarnishes the topic overall, because, you want to talk about like ancient Sumerian stuff, and you want to talk about the mythology of the people and whether or not we think that has anything to do with aliens or whatever we want to, whatever. I think it's okay to speculate, but when you watch a show that proposes based on zero evidence that we invaded Iraq to destroy some cuneiform tablets, come on, dude. It's just the stuff, their conclusions or their theories on that show are so absurd sometimes.
Well, there's so many tablets. I think there's like tens of thousands of tablets around the world.
There's a bunch.
So how do you know
There's
those tablets aren't copies or containing the same information as the tablets that are being destroyed?
Right, because there are copies, there are different versions of a certain myth, like let's say the creation myth. They have multiple different versions of that story on different tablets that they found, So yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's also because the story has changed throughout different societies that has, come along after the Sumerians or the Babylons, the Mesopotamians. The story has changed throughout the generations, So it's not always been the same thing, even though there's been a lot of parallels there.
Yeah.
As far as like the gods involved and what those gods may have been, in charge of or what have you, But it's obviously going to change throughout this, the different generations, So it's not always going to be the same exact. It's like that story, like the game of telephone, right?
I used to love that game.
Things are going to change over time,
Although I'm pretty sure when I played that kids would change it on purpose.
Absolutely, they would.
I did.
They would do a basic exercise of like, tell your mom to pick me up at 2:00. And then by the end you would get to, I saw the second man on the grassy knoll or something. Like something that has absolutely zero to do with these.
But it's kids, so it's more likely something to do with butts.
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever.
But we already knew what was going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
nobody
it's just
nobody
a
thought
game.
that was going to work. You know there's going to be somebody to change the message along the line.
Like there is a lesson to be learned there when you were being taught that game in elementary school, wherever it may have been, but like at the same time, you already knew what was going on. It was a simple lesson to learn. All you need to do is just explain it to me. We don't need to go through this game. So if you want to go through this game, well, I'm going to have some fun,
Yeah.
I don't know, but then the adults would be like, see, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, they did that. They're like, see, word of mouth doesn't work, you guys. This is not a good idea to rely on what people say. This is a perfect example.
Well, it did for many generations in the Native American community,
Well, passing down stories orally is a very old tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and for example, this reminds me of the notion of the Egyptian god Thoth. Was it Thoth or Thoth? Thoth, something like that, right? When he described, the implementation of writing, like he questioned, like, is this actually a good thing to do? Is this really like should we do this? I guess is what he was saying, because oral interpretation it can be solid as long as the bearers of that information, properly pass on the information.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's like I find that kind of interesting.
Did you guys know that David Icke, otherwise known as David Icke, said that
I saw that
the lizard people
I'm familiar with David Icke.
the lizard people or his lizard people are actually the Anunnaki. Did you guys see that?
Yes,
I have.
Yes, I did.
All right.
David Icke says some wild stuff.
It's weird because he has like some really interesting stuff, and then he has some like really, really out there stuff.
Yeah. Like sometimes with his like lectures, I've watched a few lectures from him, and I it's like, oh damn, like this is really interesting. But then he says something, you're like, whoa, dude, wait a minute,
hold on here, yeah,
hold on there, buddy. Like, I don't know about that, like without bringing up any specific terms, like I do enjoy watching his lectures, but at the same time, like I said, like sometimes it would be like, nah, that's not real. What are you talking about, dude? Oh God, okay then. I think you went a little bit too hard in the paint right there,
Yeah. All right,
but
so
he'll say stuff sometimes like with very little evidence, and they're big claims, like, and it's just like, all right, dude.
Yeah.
That's a cool story. But no.
So we mentioned earlier, Nibiru a little bit. I don't think we went into too much detail on that. And so it's supposed to be, some people believe it to be anyways, another planet. We mentioned that, I think. But yeah. I found that actually there might be a 10th planet. Nibiru is supposed to collide with the Earth at some point in time, but there actually is some evidence for an undiscovered 10th planet. Middle finger to everybody who thinks that Pluto is not a planet. I still call it a planet because it is.
It has a moon.
Hey,
it has two. Shout
out to Eddie Bravo.
Yeah. Shout out to Pluto too. Hey, you can't compare the two. Come on, flat Earth and Pluto being a planet are two completely different things. But
love you, Pluto.
I was taught my whole life that Pluto's a planet, so damn it, it's a planet still. That's my whole take.
It's an asteroid.
Is not.
It has.
I agree.
It has a moon,
and it orbits the sun.
It may be small, but it's not the size of the sword that matters. It's how you use it.
That's true. Yeah. Some swords can be too big, it's a thing. So there's actually evidence of an undiscovered 10th planet. They found a peculiar clustering of some extreme trans-Neptunian objects that could be caused by a distant 5 to 10 times Earth mass-sized planet. They haven't proven or found it yet, but it's really interesting because they found evidence, and this is how they found other planets before, is they'll notice okay, here's our model, here's the planets we know about, and we notice this tiny, tiny little fluctuation in the orbit of something that's not supposed to be there. So that suggests that there's another large body out there in the solar system somewhere.
Like it's being influenced by a certain gravity, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what they think this might be. They think there might be a giant planet or relatively large planet, but it's like really, really far away, like really far out there. But they're not sure. They haven't found it. They're looking for it, but it's possible. And is that the planet Nibiru? I don't know. Probably not. But it's still, that was a fun little thing I ran across.
Isn't there another planet that some people reference?
What?
I don't know. I thought we went to a lecture and someone was talking about a planet and it was not Nibiru. It's a different planet.
I don't remember them talking. I remember the lecture you're talking about. They were talking about Skinny Bob. Remember that one guy was talking about the Skinny Bob video?
Yeah, I'm going to look it up because I'm pretty sure they were talking about another planet.
Yeah. If anybody does,
I know that.
are you familiar with Skinny Bob?
Nibiru has been called also Planet X.
Yeah. Yes, it has.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe there's, I don't know, some confusion there or something.
I'm confused.
Maybe, I don't know.
But
I'm very confused.
Skinny Bob is this video of this alien that supposedly was captured, and it looks really, really good. Like it's almost convincing, but if you watch it very closely, you'll notice a few details that basically prove that it's fake, you know? Hey, I want it to be real. I would love it for it to be real.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Probably
and
not.
That's like the same reason why I love watching like ghost videos, like when people were like exploring different structures, like abandoned structures and stuff. And I love ghost videos, man. I want to believe, but here's the thing. No matter how compelling, like the videos I've seen on anywhere from like YouTube or wherever, whatever platform you're seeing these videos, not a single one, you know, has been compelling enough where I don't think it could have been faked. You know, it's
Right.
just, all right, well, I mean, that looks compelling, but I can imagine it could have been faked. You know, there's a lot of people that are very experienced with, like, you know, certain features and doing this kind of thing, right? Like certain special effects, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. All I'm saying is like some of these videos and stuff I've watched, like I could not believe it unless I had gone through it myself. If I have gone through an experience like that myself, okay, I will tell you 100%, like, oh yeah, that was not faked. But still at the same time, I mean, who am I, right? Like, all right, so if you choose to believe me, then get cool. But like, you know, if I was somebody, you know, just, you know, observing my testimony, I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't believe me. You know, like it's like, all right, I also haven't gone through this, so
Yeah.
I don't believe you. You know, it could have been easily faked. You know, so I don't know.
There are some experiences that have natural explanations, but when you experience it, it's the strangest damn thing. I remember when
Yeah.
I was a kid, I was up late one night. I think it was during the summer. I'm not sure. But anyways, I was up late watching some cable TV, some stuff that I shouldn't be watching probably, you know, all that late night filler they used to have.
Was it Cinemax?
No, we didn't have Cinemax. We had HBO.
Oh,
So it was,
well, I remember a couple of times like we had like the free, like, you know, 1 month trial or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
But anyways, I was in the living room and I looked out the window and I saw the entire sky was like this really weird, bright pink, like really bright, like almost like it was daytime, but instead it was still night, but it was pink. It was really weird. I was a little kid. I didn't know what to make of this. It freaked me the fuck out. I had no idea what was happening. It kind of made me scared, but it was also sort of in awe. I was like, I didn't understand it. And it wasn't until years later that I saw that there was massive solar flares, and it was similar to the aurora, but kind of different. You had this massive solar activity, and it excited the atmosphere and made the sky look weird. But as a kid, I had no way of knowing that was even a thing. And it was pretty much a supernatural experience for me, even though now I know that it was, I wouldn't say it was on par with ghosts, but I would say it's a very strange experience that I now know has an explanation. But I guess the point is is that I believe that people do have really bizarre experiences. Whether or not they're explainable, I don't know, but I think that people do have these experiences, and I don't like to just dismiss it out of hand because we don't have any good video evidence of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and one of the things, like, to keep this tangent going just for another second here, like a lot of these people that post these videos of their experiences when it comes to supernatural type stuff, I don't think there's that many good actors out there, right? So some of these people that post these videos of what they have experienced, like in their house or wherever they may be, they seem to be acting genuinely to the situation. Like they don't. It doesn't seem to me like some of them definitely. It's obvious. Like, all right, well, you made that situation happen. You're editing the video in a certain way, whatever it may be, right? But sometimes I'll see some videos when it comes to like paranormal stuff where it's like I don't know if this is real, but I definitely feel like this person was acting genuinely in a response to the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it still could be a situation that could have been faked, but as far as this, person's reaction to the situation, like it makes me want to believe that this is real,
Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean, and I might be right. I might be wrong. I don't know, but
and there is compelling photographic evidence that I've seen when I've looked into these things a handful of times. Could it be faked? Yeah, it could be, but there's still some pretty compelling photographs out there.
Sure. Yeah.
Speaking of, I hear they're reopening the Queen Mary. We have to do a pod trip, dude. We have to go to the Queen Mary. Yeah, yeah. That would be
I'm down.
That would be so awesome. We have to stay there. That would be cool.
I'm down for sure. And I wouldn't even mind going because I remember I've been there once before when they had like their Halloween like event at the Queen Mary,
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't mind doing that. Like, that'd be cool. But either way, no matter what, like, yeah, I'm definitely down to go there and experience the Queen Mary because I've been there a couple times, but it was only for like one of the times was a tattoo convention. They had a couple concerts, and then it was the second time was that Halloween like event where they had like a concert or two, and I think they had some tattoo stuff going on there too, but I didn't really get into it. But like, even though I have tattoos on all my extremities and chest, and
you do have the best tattoo ever printed onto a person, but
I believe so. Hey, no, fuck it. Let's let them know. Let's let them know. You know what? We'll do it live. Fuck
all right,
it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do it live.
Okay, why don't you please describe your tattoo? Not any of your tattoos, but your best tattoo.
My best tattoo. It's Elmer Fudd on my right ass cheek, and he's holding a rifle pointing towards the middle, right there, right towards the hole. And he has a caption above him that says, "I know you're in there, rabbit."
Do chicks dig this sort of thing? Do you get undressed slowly and you turn around and you slowly wiggle your butt and you're like, check me out?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's a great conversation starter.
I bet it is.
That's conversation starter. Is that like what you do to pick them up?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, it might not be the very...
And you're like, hey, check this out.
Well, it might not be the very first thing I say, but like if we get into tattoos, I'll be like, well, it's one of those things where, all right, so I feel like I have a great sense of humor, right? Yeah. And like this is one of those gauges that I will pull out every once in a while, like to get a gauge on this person's sense of humor. Like if you're a lady that I'm interested in, you got to have a good sense of humor. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to deal with me. I got to know you have a thick skin because I'm going to make some ridiculous fucking like jokes and stuff. That's just my nature.
Can confirm. I just like to confirm that ETA is definitely holding back on this show. You guys have no idea. No idea.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, like I said, it's a good conversation starter,
Yeah.
It's not going to be the first thing I'm going to say to you. I'm not going to just walk up to a woman, hey, I got a tattoo on my ass. That's not what I'm going to say. But if the conversation leans into it, then I'm going to let you know, because, it's like, that's a good way to get a gauge on somebody's sense of humor. If they find that like appalling, then all right, I don't want nothing to do with you. Yeah. I want a woman that has a good damn sense of humor. So if she finds that funny and entertaining, then all right, well, I know, like they're all right. This is something that could be, a good thing, This is
Agent
a good woman.
Ether's mic stand is haunted. It's moving on its own.
I did not
Is
touch it. It just slipped. It's not my fault.
Can you tighten the thing?
Yeah.
That mic stand sucks. I need to get a better one.
Yeah.
That thing fucking sucks. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Yeah, well, we're trying to do it live, but the mic stand sucks. That's the second mic stand I've gotten. They both are pretty horrible. It's hard to find a good mic stand, I tell you what.
Well, before you forget, do we have anybody in our live audience this evening?
Oh, heck yeah. We got Tyrannosquatch. We got Titanium over ... What's up? What?
Keep going.
Wait, what do you... Oh, is it doing it again?
Yes.
You got to crank that thing really hard.
Here, keep going. Keep going.
That's what she said. Or that's what he said.
It still doesn't always work. It's Titanium Override and Mass Gib. So thanks you guys for showing up. Usually we got a few more people, but I didn't announce this at all really because I didn't know if it was going to happen because ETA has been having technical difficulties. But
yeah, it's kind of my fault.
But
sorry.
Do you want me to come over and do it?
It's over. The show's over.
No, it's not. We still got tons of stuff to talk about.
Okay, hold on.
Did you talk about everything you
Yes.
had?
I didn't have much.
Well, we don't have to go into detail, but there's so much more stuff. Like, for example, there was one of the queens that they found. They dug up a Sumerian queen that had an enlarged skull, like sort of that, sort of a shape that could be considered like an alien shape. And that's something that's been in a couple of other cultures too. That's a whole other subtopic because we have cultures where...
Oh, dude, there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, where like the women they'll put those rings on their neck to stretch out their necks. And some people think they're trying to imitate another species, perhaps an alien species. This is a whole rabbit hole that, we're getting a little long on the episode here. So we don't have time to really go down that particular rabbit hole. We were talking about cars and stuff instead.
We need to do an episode on stuff like that because there's been a lot of skeletons that have elongated skulls and there's a difference between like what is it called? There's certain cultures like in South America and around the world where like they put boards like on their babies to like shape the skulls in a certain way. But there's also been like mummies and certain skeletons that have been found that like it seems like their skulls developed naturally as opposed to being manipulated.
Yeah, I'll put it on the list as elongated skulls as just a general catch-all category. There's a lot of things that could be under this category, so I'll put that on the list.
That's an interesting one.
Ozzy Mima's here. What's up, Ozzy Mima?
Hey,
glad you could make it.
Mucho gusto. Me llamo Pelón.
I think I think that's the wrong language. They speak Australian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Down there in Aussie land. But
hey, mucho gusto. Me llamo Gordo.
There's the interesting thing about this particular topic is that there's a lot of similarities from Sumerian legends that lead to other things. There's a lot of similarities between, let's say, I think we mentioned it, the flood story where where Enlil caused a flood because he was sick of people and he wanted to kill them. And Enki went against this and gave King Ziusudra a warning to build a ship and escape the flood. It sounds an awful lot like Noah's Ark. There's, I wanted to talk, actually, before we get out of here, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Nibiru because the actual definition of this is sort of up in the air. The definition could mean like crossing or point of transition, such as like a boat crossing a river. And some people think that this means not necessarily a planet in the sky, but maybe some crossing to a different dimension. Here's a description of Nibiru that's been translated from a tablet. This is one possible translation. Nibiru, which is said to have occupied the passageways of heaven and earth, because everyone above and below asks Nibiru if they cannot find the passage. Nibiru is Marduk's star, which the gods in heaven cause to be visible. Nibiru stands as a post at the turning point. The others say of Nibiru the post. The one who crosses the middle of the sea, Tiamat, without calm, may his name be Nibiru, for he takes up the center of it. The path of the stars of the sky should be kept unchanged. Now, that's the reason I wanted to use that example, is because we were talking earlier about the difficulty of translating this stuff, and that translations makes very little sense. It's like, what is
sounds like poetry.
it doesn't really mean a whole lot of anything. So I'm guessing that translation is not 100% accurate. You know, what is in Nibiru? Who knows? It could be anything at this point based on that particular, little translation, little paragraph there.
I read it's a star.
Yeah, that's one possibility. Yeah,
maybe Venus.
It appears to have been used to describe different celestial points in the sky over time, like Jupiter maybe, or a couple of other stars or points that in the sky. It may have been used to describe anything that was passing along the sky, like a star that they could see going from one part of the sky to another, like let's say Jupiter would do over time. So there's a lot of different possible interpretations to describe that. And then there's a lot that we didn't even talk about yet. But the last thing I guess I really want to talk about is the Marduk, he was one of the gods, and he used a divine weapon to defeat Tiamat, then creating the earth and the sky. The descriptions of the weapon are that it was some kind of divine wind weapon. And we can only assume that this is some sort of hot or warm breeze, perhaps emanating from Marduk's pants.
Hot, hot, hot.
And he also had a talking mace, which definitely wasn't his penis. I just wanted to throw that out there before we end the episode. Hey, baby, I got a talking mace in my pants. All right, I read that description. I was like, a divine wind, huh? He's got a divine wind. Okay.
Oh, hey, if you had talking mace, so you don't have to really necessarily have any kind of good game there.
Yeah.
You just like let the mace talk for itself.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll take care of everything for you. Anyways, I don't know. I kind of thought that was hilarious. But also one last thing about Marduk is he was sometimes called Bel, which might be related to the Canaanite Baal, which again is a whole other episode. So I guess,
dude, we could do multiple episodes on the whole like family tree of Sumerian gods and their interactions. It would take days to explain the entire possibility of what had happened between all of them. It's kind of crazy. It's really kind of crazy.
Yeah, maybe we could do another episode in the future on this stuff to elaborate more on the details, but we've barely just scratched the surface. I know I say that a lot on these episodes, but there is so much to this topic. We couldn't possibly do all of it in an hour. It just goes more and more. And personally, I'm not super seeing a connection between the Anunnaki and actual aliens. I don't see it. It seems to be maybe a bit of a stretch, but the mythology itself is really, really interesting. There's quite a lot there. And it's possible if I dig a little deeper, I will find stuff that I find more interesting and possible descriptions of aliens. I don't know. But as far as what I found for today, I just wasn't really seeing the connection,
Yeah.
So before we get out, you have any final thoughts on this, Agent Ether?
I'm having trouble with my final thoughts because my microphone is broken.
All right, that's Ether's final thoughts. And then how about you, Agent ETA? Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Well, yeah. All right. So I'm pretty much on the same page with you there. Like, I think there has been some potential misinterpretations of, the cuneiform tablets and stuff, and especially popularized by Zachariah Sitchin. I don't think he made the best interpretations there, and he also wrote a couple books that became very popular and influenced a lot of people. So a lot of people's understanding of this topic was influenced by him. And he wasn't necessarily an expert. So I think there was a lot of things that were lost in translation there. When it comes to that, but I will say that I think that the Sumerian gods, and especially like the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, like it has a lot of similarities between, like stories, religious stories that came after and before too. It just seemed like one of those things where these were just like, the gods that the Sumerians, whether they created these gods or, were just, I think what it was is they were dealing with natural effects, like natural stuff that was going on around them. And they were trying to describe why certain things would happen, natural effects, like, like the power of the sea, and the power of the wind and the sky. They were trying to explain stuff that they were, observing, and, it's a similar story that's happened throughout human history. I don't think it's necessarily special, it is very interesting, but it's the same story that has been told time and time again throughout human civilization. It's no different, so, it's very interesting, but I don't think there were aliens that came down from fucking Nibiru, that created the human race,
Yeah. They were coming here to take our gold to patch up their own atmosphere, because we know for a fact that there's asteroids out there that have, one asteroid could have more gold than our entire planet. So why would you come down here and bother the slaves and all that other stuff when you could just grab an asteroid and go, right?
Especially with all that advanced technology.
Easier.
Yeah.
Right. If they had the ability to come from one planet to another, they would have the ability to mine an asteroid or something like that had precious metals on it, right? Not a big deal. If you have that kind of capability, not a big deal.
I would go one step farther, and I think at some point you would develop the technology. If you can go from one planet to one system to another, that's pretty advanced tech. You might have the tech to just synthesize whatever molecules you need, You wouldn't even have to mine stuff anymore.
But there is also, the notion where, throughout like, the history of humans and, related other hominids and stuff, like we have that missing link, right? Like, so this could potentially explain that, potentially.
Yeah.
Like I'm stepping out on a limb here. I'm just saying is all, I'm not saying I believe it, but what if that is the missing link?
Yeah. Well, I do like the seed theory. I think they call it the seed theory. I do think it's very interesting. Personally, I haven't seen any evidence to support it, but I think it's a really interesting idea.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
At least. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, this is such a good topic. Maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point. I don't know, but there's just so much we could talk about around this whole thing. But I think we're going to leave it there for now because it's getting on. Let's see. Yeah, we're a little over an hour here. I try to keep this to about an hour for the show. So that's about all we got for you this time. Thank you guys so much for listening. And thanks to, I forgot to did I put it in the notes who chose this? This was suggested, or this was requested by Unforgiven Agent on Discord, and it was selected by our Patreon subscribers who get to vote on our topic every week. So thank you guys so much for supporting us on Patreon. We got 3 tiers. We have our introductory tier, which gets you early access and after hours, our medium tier, which gets you all the bonus content, and then the top tier, which allows you to vote on our upcoming topics. So thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you everybody else for listening. And that's all we got for you tonight.
And I just wanted to mention we had an awesome bonus episode. I don't normally do bonus episodes, but we were off on vacation and we found these really cool comics. So if you want to hear more about them, go ahead and tune in. And you can do that by becoming a Patreon subscriber. In the meantime, keep it strange.
Yeah, keep it strange. And by vacation, she means really quite the adventure.
Yeah, if you want the deets, listen in.
Shenanigans and tomfoolery. I'll just leave it at that.
For sure.
Stepping through decks and stuff.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.